is going to. I mean, I've had this phone pre-pandemic, that actual phone there.
Gotcha.
The last one I had, I was sitting on my boat out at the lake and I knocked it off my chair
Oh.
and I saw it bounce down to one deck to the other deck. And then it went in, and I'll never forget, I had a friend come out there and he dropped one of those chairs that you carry on your back in the water. He tried to reach for it. I said, it's 100 feet there. Chuck, you're not gonna be able to reach for that. I said, this is a cliff where the South Marina is. That's a cliff going off where the marina is. So, God, I shut down that boat and within 20 minutes, I was on the north side from the South Marina to the north side to sprint to get another phone. That's how I panicked, because I had to have a phone. Because I was out there taking time off of work, but I wanted to be able to get a hold of me. So, God, I just can't believe how it's like glued here.
The nice thing about the iPhone is that, you know, all that, if you back it up to the cloud, you can just recover it all, right? And the phone looks the exact same
Yeah,
way.
except my cloud is full for the photos.
Well, this problem.
Is this in your job description for community members to help?
Hello.
Thanks for water. Don't worry about it.
Water? Oh, you don't have to.
Let's try and sign back into the account, right? So if you try to just re-enter the password there. Let's just hit that and then it'll pop up that window. And then you sign into your account. Doesn't look like what it should just be S Naraki at SRTA. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been so long since I used the password.
Okay. Do you know the password? Do you remember it?
I think I do. Right here, Louisa, capital LOUISA 40.
Grab a chair. Just grab a chair, wherever you want.
Hey, hello. Yeah, so your email, right, is just S Naraki. Let's just try back. Sure.
Right, hey, welcome, new member.
Yeah,
You got voted on.
Okay, so just try to get the password there. Which you think it is?
So you got done shopping at Sam's, huh?
Yeah, I was kind of in a hurry. I was on a, you know, kind of on a,
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, we kind of were catching up there for a while, weren't we?
I was on a mission for Diane to get, you know, a few things. She was in the middle of making a bunch of spaghetti sauce, so she was taking a batch of tomatoes that she grew, you know, did.
Where are you gonna sit?
So hers are already right.
Why don't you sit
I don't
here
think
or
ours
there,
are
and I'm gonna
close.
let you
Well-
drive this in case
I
anything
don't
weird
think
comes
that's,
up,
that's, it was a,
wherever you want to
it
sit.
was a
It's gonna
plant
be
that
okay.
had big tomatoes.
But no, it's okay.
Jennifer, can you hear us okay?
Easy go to those small ones.
Well, maybe not, that's why I wanna check.
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'll turn on my computer.
Great,
I'm George Andrews.
we can hear you great too,
I
thank
saw
you.
your face.
We'll get started in a few minutes, okay?
This is for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We need 6 members, but that's 4.
Hi, I'm George Andrews.
Hi, George. You're the energy guy? Yeah, I remember, I don't know if you were on.
Yeah, last meeting I was, it was before my first official day, but now I'm getting more involved and getting ready to pretty much take over organizing.
Well, good. I look forward to that because it's nice to have someone there to make things fly and, you know.
Yeah, I guess I did.
About once a month,
whether I need it
or not. Cool. Thanks for coming.
Well, I can get there too. I don't care. What's that?
I just grabbed the first bottle I could find.
No, you're fine.
I don't know why, I always sit on this side of the table, just have it.
Here you go, Alan, I'll fix you up.
Hey.
Did you know she got a little name tag?
Yeah, I totally forget I have this.
Anybody with under a year gets a little baby.
Gotta earn it.
Yes, I need to make one too. That meeting with John and Devin, is it gonna work for you?
Yeah.
I said yes too.
Yeah, we're
I
meeting.
get some other
It
stuff.
looks
going
like,
on, but-
so Eric Lundin has joined, but he was. still
Good to have you here.
Eric, can you hear us okay?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, welcome. We'll get started shortly. Video.
We need 6 members of the commission to have a quorum, so I'm kind of waiting for one more to join. So hopefully we'll have Laura Getz here soon.
There are some other things we can discuss.
We have Patty Olenek joining on Zoom, so you'll see her shortly. And yeah, you can always start the meeting. You just couldn't make do any votes for decisions until you have quorum.
Okay. So we'll see. I guess what we could get going on is why don't we go ahead and start the meeting and give our consent agenda. Normally what we do is ask for approval of minutes, but since we don't have a quorum here, we can't do that. But we can go ahead with committee reports. So.
Okay, I'll start if that'll work out.
Yeah.
For you. And then Alan may have some things to add. We're in the midst of trying to reevaluate our subcommittee and which direction we're going to head. And we found that Andrew had really been working towards a lot of the things that we were recommending. And so we're thinking about moving in a different area. And we set up a meeting with Alan and I and John from Black Hills to meet with Devin to discuss community solar and get better educated in that. And we talked a little bit about, I talked to John, Alan, we were talking about what subcommittees involved in communications. We thought that may be a good way to move towards that, because some of your emails reflected that. Here's some information, how to get that. Maybe our committee could move within some of the other committees. I think all subcommittees also have that.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have anything for our committee that you wanted to either recommend or talk during our time?
Well, I think I sent it out to everyone that sort of fits in because it's a municipal operation, but there was an article covering the hydro plant at Whitlock. It's not actually functioning yet, but hopefully by next year we'll be online producing power at that site. I think there's still probably a lot of work to do and room to make progress on municipal related buildings and facilities. Some of them are pretty substantial power users, like the wastewater treatment plant, things like that. So, I think there's still a lot for our committee to focus on those areas.
And that's good one too. Hopefully, Andrew, I talked to him about some of the other buildings, but the wastewater, all their pumping and things. And it would be interesting to see how the energy audit affected them. And then last time I visited them, they were out near the county there, and they have their office. You were telling me that one of their offices in Buffalo now, right? Their business office, was that you who was telling me that?
The business office for
Wastewater.
is in the city.
I thought you had told me that. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, they're I assume all their facilities are within the city limits.
No, you know where their plant is. That's where I visited.
Okay, I think that's in the city limits.
And all their offices are out there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
I don't know who the new director is.
It's okay.
Andrea Aaron's.
Okay,
Yeah, she's been there for a while.
and she.
Yeah, she was, I think, Nancy's assistant.
Okay, yeah, Nancy was, when I was on council, Nancy was
Yeah.
good.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad that got that cleared up. Yeah, because I thought there was all their offices and their labor and everyone was out there.
I mean, that's where I went, used to go visit Nancy, was out there and stuff, so I'm assuming
Good.
everything else.
Yeah, I think that's all we had there.
I could do policy.
Yeah.
So kind of the focus of the policy committee for the last month has been preparing a presentation to the city council at a work session. And so, you know, Ken put together kind of an outline and then we kicked it around a little bit and then Laura turned it into a PowerPoint, which I think's been shared with the entire committee at this point. So that's what we've been doing.
I think we tweaked, so this presentation that we had, Laura, have you had an opportunity to update that, the presentation?
I did. I sent it to you earlier today.
Okay, I guess I was, yeah, I didn't see it, so I apologize.
So you remember the last time presented to city council, Laura prepared the PowerPoint, do you remember that?
Yeah, no. I mean, we, Laura's a great, preparer of presentations, so she's really thorough. So I appreciate her doing this.
Ken, I can share it from my screen if that's going to be helpful
Yeah, I
too,
think
because it's on my computer when it's time to present.
that's what we need to do when it's time to present. I wanted to just introduce a couple things. One is that this energy performance contract stuff, I think we need to kind of do it the way most Colorado government entities do it. Okay, and that's going through the Colorado Energy Office and doing formal energy performance contracts, because there's a whole system out there of financial support too, and that opens us up to getting grants and things of that nature. The second thing is that a lot of Pueblo County is not in this energy community. It's not identified as an energy community, and this is a federal designation that opens up an extra opportunity for another 10% incentives. Okay, so if you're building a renewable system, a solar farm or whatever, and a solar farm would be the most obvious thing for Pueblo. There are some areas where you don't get that extra 10%, and that's a big deal. So
And the depot is one of the areas where it is, so, right, where the depot is.
I don't know where it's not, maybe.
I mean, I thought that's where it was, maybe not. Maybe
So
we should find that out.
yeah, we need to do some more investigation. What's good today is we have George O'Brien, that's George Andrews, George Andrews, who is now our energy office. So he's going to work on energy issues for Pueblo. So I think he's going to help kind of move that along. That may not be the priority for him, but it's one of the things. Not that we can do a whole lot, but we need to lobby our federal partners, Hickenlooper, Bennett, Lobert, to see if we can't get that energy community for the whole county. So again, this is really a county thing, not a city thing.
When we met with John Thatcher, did he talk about that? Because a lot of the land that he has, they lease out for solar. I can't imagine that land is not part of that area, that they wouldn't be trying to get that.
Yeah, so if there's other community members that can help us in this too, so we need to pull them in.
Okay.
Was that voted on? Is it something that's feasible to be able to do? How did that come about?
I think so.
And that's right. If you
It comes out of a census agency. So, you know, they have set up a model somehow and, extrapolate on areas or interpolate or whatever. you want.
Okay, so it wasn't anything that the state house voted on or?
It's nothing to do with the state. So it's a federal, it's a federal initiative. I mean, it's in alignment with the Inflation Reduction Act, I think, is what call this out. Because it changes incentives to areas. And we'll see in this presentation that we're going to give to the work session, we talk a little bit about the disproportionate disadvantaged community. I don't think we talk necessarily about energy communities, but Pueblo is like the poster child of a disproportionately disadvantaged community. Okay, so since we have now a quorum, I just wanted to ask if somebody can move to accept the minutes from the last meeting, and then we need a second. So
The second.
okay, everybody in favor say yes.
Yes.
Anybody
Yes.
opposed? Anybody opposed say no. And so meeting minutes are approved. So we can go into the regular agenda. And the first item on the agenda is a transportation electric plan for Pueblo. We have Eric London, who's the EV program manager for Black Hills. So Eric, we'll give you control. How do we want to do this? Do we want to have Eric present or?
Yes, Eric, you
I
should
can
be
share
able
my
to
screen if
see your
you'd like.
screen. Yep.
Perfect. Give me just a moment.
And Jennifer will do that for you as well when it's your time.
Got the thumbs up.
All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for having me today to come and present to you. I'm happy to explain kind of what we as a company are doing for our transportation electrification plan and how it affects our customers here in Pueblo. So again, my name is Eric Lundin. I am the electric vehicle program manager for Black Hills Energy. And jump right in here. Just a little bit of background. In 2019, Colorado Senate Bill 1977 was passed, and that required the investor-owned utilities, which are here in Colorado, it's Xcel Energy and Black Hills Energy, to come up with a transportation electrification plan. Essentially, we were tasked with developing a strategy to help encourage what they called the widespread adoption of electric vehicles throughout the state of Colorado. As a company, this is something we had already been exploring, that we had started looking into the year previous, so we kind of had a head start on this. We put together a plan, and that was filed with the Colorado PUC in May of 2020. The decision was made to go forward and flush out and approve Xcel's plan before ours. So we kind of had to sit on the back burner for a little while and wait. We finally received plan approval at the end of 2021. And so the plan years were for 21, 22, and 23. So we kind of lost that first year of really being able to have a plan in place and know what our marching orders were, so to speak. We knew, that we were going to have to file a new plan for 24 through 26. So really 2022, we kind of considered a pilot year. We had the plan as designed, and it was implementation, it was promotion. There was a lot of efforts that went into that, but it was at the same time, really learning and listening to the feedback and seeing what was working, what wasn't working, and helping that to prepare us for our next plan filing, which we filed in May of this year. So that we are currently going through the process of having that plan approved. I'll get into that a little bit here in a couple minutes. But that's just kind of the background as to what's brought us to where we are today and why we're doing what we're doing. The main components of our transportation electrification plan is EV charging rebates for both homes and businesses. We have EV time of use rates that vary depending on, again, whether it's residential or commercial. We have included construction allowances for new commercial service lines that are used for EV charging. We have income qualified programs, which include an increased home charging and wiring rebate. And then we also have vehicle purchase rebates for used and new vehicles for income qualified customers. And then probably the biggest aspect or our biggest focus really was customer communications and education. We have a very broad strategy as to what we've been doing and how we've been getting out into the community and how we've been trying to spread the word, not only just about our program and our plan, but also the benefits of electric vehicles and how they can help.
So
So the
Eric,
information, yeah, sorry.
can I ask a question?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. The EV use, the EV time of use rates, how many people are on these?
Currently, we have about 13 residential customers that are on the time of use rate. We have one pending, and for commercial, I think we've got 4.
No,
So I'll,
okay, are there some plans to change that? To get the rebates?
Yep.
Okay, I'll let you go
yeah,
forward.
yeah. No worries, no worries. I'll address that here in just a moment. So, like I said, our biggest, thing was implementation of the plan and listening to stakeholder feedback as we were doing this. We really wanted to hear from the community. We wanted to hear from our customers as to really how best we can design a plan that works best for them. So, like I said, we had a robust communications and community engagement. We used social media. We did a local video production using Black Hills employees as well as customers. That's been running on YouTube and on our website and some different other channels. We've done a lot of community events. If you see here on the right, I've got a picture of an event I did at the Earth Day event at the zoo. And then down in the lower corner is a parade that we attended in Canyon City for last year's Blossom Festival. And yes, those are my children carrying the banner. I'm not afraid to stoop to involving the whole family in this grassroots effort. We had a lot of stakeholder engagement. I hold quarterly stakeholder calls. We've had presentations and meetings with different community partners and leaders, including the City of Pueblo and the Mayor's office, different economic development corporations and chambers of commerce. And then there's been a lot of collaboration with peer utilities. This is one thing where, a lot of us utilities have been tasked with this. This is new for a lot of us. And there are some who've been doing it longer than us. So, why reinvent the wheel? It's a collaborative effort to, as we learn, how do we shape this? How do we best make it, a program that really is as beneficial and efficient for our customers? So through this, there were some lessons that we learned, based on our feedback, based on what we were hearing. Probably the biggest one, the residential EV charging rate requires, if a customer takes a rebate for a home charger, the commission required us to put them on a time of day rate to encourage off-peak charging. But it was also a rate structure that really hits hard during peak periods. And again, the incentive is to try and shift as much of your load and much of your usage to that off-peak period. But there's, certain things like running our air conditioners at the hottest times of the summer. Now you're looking at, double or triple potentially what the standard per kWh rate would be for a residential customer. So we heard a lot of feedback on that. We heard a lot of pushback. We heard specifically from customers who weren't interested in the rebate because they didn't want to go on this time of day rate. Another thing is that currently we have 2 EV charging manufacturers that are eligible for these rebates. We've had a lot of requests to add to that to give more of a variety in offerings and approved eligible chargers at different price points and things like that would better fit, a wider range of customer needs. So that was something that we've got a lot of requests from, partly the difficulty with that is every new charger that you get, every new manufacturer, now you've got to pay them to get the data from their charges so that we can use it as a utility. And then we have to pay for data aggregation. That just gets complicated and more expensive. And so trying to weigh out this, again, trying to have as much of a robust plan as possible, but as financially efficient as possible as well. Fleet electrification, this was something that
Are you saying that the chargers that you give the rebates on, you can read how much power is coming from them?
Yeah, so that's one of the incentives, for us as a utility to be able to have the insights on this charging behavior, so we can see what's happening. We can see what's happening to our grid, to our system, to our infrastructure. We can, make sure that we're proactively planning and, using that data just basically to continue our ability to serve our customers with reliable service.
Your rebates, on your chargers, did you say they are tied to the time of day or the EV charging rates? Or have you separated those now?
Right now it is tied. And I'll get on the next slide, I'll get to some of what our proposed changes are for this next plan. But yeah, currently for a residential charger or residential customer to take that rebate, they are required to go on that time of day rate.
And the reason I asked you, I thought you said you separated, just to get to the point. If I got a charger from my car and had that installed, there's really no incentive for me to go to a vendor that you could read that from you, as long as I'm not on that rate. But you won't give me a rebate for it.
Right, that's the current setup. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And you mentioned two chargers. Who are the manufacturers of those? I'm just curious.
Yeah, excuse me. It's ChargePoint and another company called NLX. So they have a juice. Their chargers are called either the Juice Box or I think the Juice Box line is what they call them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So fleet electrification was something that the commission had really pushed for us to come up with a plan to help our fleet customers to electrify their fleets. One of the things that we realize is that identifying who those customers are within our service territory is a little bit difficult and kind of time consuming. Not that it's not a priority or something that we're concerned with, but as an electric utility, we classify our customers based on their usage. And the amount of usage. We don't get into the types of businesses and what they do. So for us, developing this, trying to identify who these customers are is something that's been a little bit difficult, and it's been a challenge so far. I am literally the electric vehicle program. I am the one and only staff member that runs this entire program for us as a company. So I'm a little bit spread thin in certain ways with a lot of initiatives to carry out. So we also heard some information regarding our income qualified programs. Verification of eligibility, it can be an issue. I know that we have some different programs as a company that we offer for income qualified customers that have a much more robust budget than what we have and have much more adoption. And so it's a little bit easier for them to pay for that verification of eligibility. For us, it's been a difficult process to identify how we're going to do that. And again, coming down to what's prudent, to spend, where should we invest our money and how best can we do that and make it as easy for everybody involved. And then, I mentioned that we have electric vehicle purchase rebates. So there's a rebate of $5,500 for a new vehicle or a $3,000 rebate for a used vehicle. The way that we have to administer the rebates, again, we don't have the agreements in place and the technology and contracts to be able to provide that as a point of sale rebate at this point. So it has to be a post sale. And because of the dollar amount and the way that the tax code is currently written, without exclusions or protections for electric vehicle related rebates, this is something that we would actually have to issue a 1099 to a customer at the end of the year that they would potentially have to claim as income. Now, if you're dealing with a population of income qualified customers who may be receiving, energy assistance benefits, they may be receiving food stamps, different programs like that. This could potentially have detrimental impacts. Increasing their taxable income by $5,500 could potentially change or jeopardize their eligibility for some of these other programs that they rely on. So, this is something that we want to be sensitive to, and we want to make sure that, we don't have unintended consequences in what we are hoping to be as a positive thing to begin with. So, and like I said, limited staffing and support, being the only one that's here to implement the program. I'm involved in everything from presentations like this, presentations and community events, to meeting with our commissioners, to meeting with city leaders. I'm kind of pulled in many different directions, and I'm not complaining. I love it. I think I've got the best job within the company, but I do at times wish that there were more than just myself. So with that, those lessons learned, some of the proposed changes. I know that I want to be respectful of everybody's time here, so I'll kind of go through these quickly. But for our rebates, residential, we're proposing that we move away from a charger rebate and move towards a home wiring rebate. We found that some vehicles come with chargers, some vehicles, customers don't necessarily need to invest in a charger. But almost everybody needs that home wiring upgrade. As a company, and since we've been paying out these rebates in the 3 states that we serve, we've paid out 80 rebates and for residential charging, and 75 of those all indicated that they needed a new outlet installed for the wiring of that rebate. So we're pivoting to incentivize and rebate the wiring rebate and not the charger itself. And then we're proposing what's called a behavioral charging incentive. And this is something that customers can enroll in, that it would be administered by a third party. It would use the telematics from their electric vehicle itself, not from the charger. It would provide us with the charging data that we're looking for so that we can still track what we need to track. And then for customers who charge during off-peak periods, they would be eligible for a monthly bill credit for doing so. So this is kind of getting away from that whole house time of use rate while still incentivizing off-peak charging. For our commercial chargers, we're looking at requiring a dedicated service line. And the main reason for that is we're going to open up, and as you see, we're going to adopt EPRI's vetted product list for approved chargers. It's going to open up the list of chargers and equipment that's eligible for these rebates. And in exchange, we just ask that they have it separately metered so that we can get that charging data from our meters directly, rather than having to pay for some of these costly data sharing agreements and data aggregation software. So again, another cost savings benefit for our customers. And then we're looking to reduce site limits, the amount of rebates per site, per customer. We've got some of our large nationwide customers that are looking to install rebates at some of their locations within our service territory, and they could very easily eat up the majority of what we have in our budget for some of these charging rebates. And what that would mean is that local businesses, local customers that want to have chargers, it could potentially eliminate them from being eligible for those. So we're just trying to level the playing field a little bit by imposing a per site limit like this. Like I said, vendor selection, we're trying to make that easier. We're working with DriveClean Colorado on a fleet identification or fleet electrification pilot. With our income qualified programs, we've introduced and proposed some different ways to simplify the eligibility verification. We're looking to move away from the vehicle purchase rebate itself, again, because of those unintended consequences that it could potentially pose. And instead, we're looking at introducing a multifamily housing grant that would provide EV chargers for multifamily housing, and then an e-bike rebate pilot as well. So, and then we're also asking for an additional staff member here to be based out of Pueblo that would really help with our education and outreach, our program promotion, processing rebate applications, some administrative duties and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of what we've proposed, and just a high level, where we're at. Like I said, we filed this plan back in May. We had 5 stakeholders that have intervened. They've provided us with discovery requests that we've responded to. Discovery was closed and answer testimony was due as of last week. We received answer testimony from all 5 stakeholders, and now we're in a process of going through those and responding to those, and writing rebuttal testimony. I think the biggest thing here that I'd like everybody to be aware of is that we do have a public comments hearing that the commission is holding on the 19th of this month. It'll be from 4:30 to 6 p.m. It will be a fully virtual, and I don't have the meeting invitation. I don't have the Zoom invite quite yet, but when I do, I can definitely share it with this group. This is something I would invite everybody to, if this is anything that you want to give feedback to, anything that you feel, whether it's in support of what we're doing, or whether you feel, you want your voice to be heard, this is an opportunity to do that. So, yeah, so we've got kind of a hearing schedule set through the end of October, and then final commission decision is due at the end of February for this next 3-year plan. So that's where we're at. I realize that was kind of a whirlwind. I don't know if we still have time for questions, but I'm happy to take any.
We had a couple, Steve Naraki had.
Go ahead, you start.
Mine is just real simple. If I'm a lower income person and I get a new heat pump water heater, new heat pump furnace, and I get thousands of dollars of rebates, you're gonna 1099 me? But I guess you don't, but if I buy a car, you're gonna 1099 me?
Yeah, so currently for the energy efficiency rebates for different equipment like you just referenced, there's tax code that states that those are not considered taxable income. So there is a tax shelter for those so that we can provide those rebates and not have to 1099 you. Currently, from our understanding, from our tax preparers and our attorneys, it is our understanding that there is no tax code protection for EV related rebates. So if we have to, the dollar amount of these rebates would cross that threshold where we would have to issue a 1099.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So
yeah,
Eric,
you're welcome.
Steve Naraki, have you been working closely with the city with the implementation of their new police vehicles that are all going to be electric, and kind of making recommendations in terms of how many charging stations and to keep those things running all the time?
Yeah, so we worked with the city to be able to provide and install the first round of chargers for the police vehicles at the police station there. We are currently in the process of getting them connected with ChargePoint. That's the equipment that they have. That's the manufacturer. ChargePoint has a very robust fleet team, and it's a fleet advisory team. And so what they will do is they'll be able to partner with the city, take a look at their needs, and help them, develop and identify a strategic way of, okay, this is the vehicles and this is the timing, for more chargers. This is when you're going to need this and whatnot. So yeah, we are helping kind of make that connection with them.
Do you know what the implementation timeframe is?
I don't, if memory serves me correctly, when we first started having conversations with them a little over a year ago, I believe they have approximately 160 vehicles in the police department fleet. The goal is to try and electrify as many of those as possible. Obviously, there's some struggles, or there's some obstacles as to right now as to which ones can and cannot be electrified. But I believe it was their goal to bring in between 8 and 10 electric vehicles as they phase out gasoline vehicles per year, I believe,
Okay,
for the next few years.
George, could you find out specifically about that when they're planning on starting implementing all that?
Sure.
I don't know, Eric, we have George Andrews. He's the energy coordinator recently hired by the city. So I'm asking
okay.
if you can find out. Sure. Thanks, Ken.
I have one final question. I had a question. On these EV rebates, is that just for low income or?
No, so for residential customers, we have an EV rebate of $500 for any customer who purchases an eligible charger and has it installed at their home. Again, as long as they're one of our customers. For the income qualified customers, that rebate expands up to $1,300 So it's a little bit more money to help offset not just the purchase of the charger, but also the potential wiring upgrades that would be required.
You mentioned something about a $5,000 rebate that, or did I mishear you? What was that for?
That's for the purchase. So that's the income qualified vehicle purchase rebate. So if an income qualified customer goes out and purchases a new vehicle, we would provide them with a $5,500 rebate.
Okay.
Hey, Eric, I have a few questions. Thanks so much for the presentation and for being here.
Yeah.
First, I guess, have you been working with the city's transit group at all? And do you know where they're at in applying for funding and trying to convert the bus fleet?
You know what, I have to admit, I haven't been. The way the conversations with the city and how we got to the police department began with, you know, one of the things that the commission had directed us was to, you know, to work with transit agencies, you know, for mass transit. And we kind of had this vision of trying to provide a bus for the city or something like that, you know, or working together to have an electric bus. When we first approached, you know, the city back at the beginning of 2022, the mayor put together kind of an internal task force team to identify, you know, what the greatest needs were. And in response to that, it's my understanding or my recollection that that the city was going to be moving the transit center within the next 5 years, that the, you know, investment in the infrastructure for charging and kind of moving into that direction might be a little bit premature at this point. It's definitely something that my understanding was a priority and a desire, but at this point, it was then identified that the police department would be the best opportunity for the first kind of department to electrify. So I haven't had any more conversations regarding the transit with them since then.
I think you're accurate, Eric, because for the expansion of the Riverwalk, they need to move the transit station. And they have the funding to start that, but nothing can happen major happening until the transit's moved. So, and out on Erie is where they're planning on locating it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. And I don't know if you've heard that the city has received funding to do an EV readiness plan from the Colorado Energy Office. And so it'd be great to incorporate transit, the new transit center, and how they can build that out for electrification into that plan, perhaps. And then,
yeah, definitely.
And one other question, or actually, sorry, two quick questions. One was, how can more local stakeholders get involved in your quarterly stakeholder meetings? You know, so we've got George here now. It'd be great to have him representing the city. What does that process look like?
That is a great question. And that is something that, George, if you want to be involved in those, I can add you to those invitation lists. It's a quarterly meeting that I hold. And if there's any other groups, as you're sitting here and you're thinking about, you know, other groups within the city that represent, you know, that would have skin in the game, so to speak, as far as these electrification efforts go, please reach out to me and let me know, and I would be happy to add them. One of the things that we run into probably on a very regular basis is realizing that we don't have the voice and the representation of Pueblo that I would really like us to have. And so many times I find myself sitting here advocating for our customers, advocating for our service territory with people in Denver and in Boulder and in different demographic areas that don't really understand our customer base or our service territory. And so if there's anybody that would feel that they would be interested in joining these stakeholder meetings, I would be more than happy to include them.
Great, thank you, Eric. And then really quickly, Drive Clean Colorado, it sounds like I heard from George, he confirmed that they have hired someone to represent Pueblo in Southern Colorado. Have you been connected with their new employee yet?
We've exchanged a couple of emails, but I think we have a formal introduction here coming soon. So I'm very excited about that, definitely.
Great, yeah, that'll be great. Excellent, thank you so much.
I had a fast question about those chargers. Since we're getting some, the difference between your communication chargers to communicate to you and a regular charger, what's the difference in price?
The chargers themselves are gonna be the same. Are you talking about like if you were to purchase? So the city has kind of started with ChargePoint chargers. I would assume that that's what they're gonna continue because the platform is gonna be the same. So the chargers themselves are gonna be the same cost for the customers. That's why the rebates will continue to be the same. It's just a cost savings on our end to get the data that we already have in our fingertips, sorry, through the AMI meter data that we have. You know, for me, it was kind of a, why would we pay tens of thousands of dollars to each charging manufacturer to get this data when we can just by making a couple programmatic changes, we could have it for free. And why would that be something that our customers should incur as a
Sure,
cost?
you see where I'm headed with this, Eric. You know, we don't wanna, as a city, we don't wanna pay a lot more for chargers that have communications, even if, I mean, if the rebate covers it, maybe. But same thing with your EV rate. We don't wanna be put on a rate that, like you mentioned, could be really terrible for the police department because they may need to charge it during the day too. So I guess I'm gonna ask George to kind of look into that to make sure we're not gonna be paying more just so you can have communications. And, you know, I used to work for Excel, so I know the difference between your AMR meters and the regular meters that don't have readers. Now they're a little bit closer, but I'll bet you those chargers are quite a bit more expensive than a charger I could just, you know, go buy from electronic store to get it put in. But I guess it's just a caution because, you know, we love what Black Hills does, but we got to be careful because you know, that relationship doesn't mean that we want to do something that's going to hurt the taxpayers of the city.
Definitely, and I couldn't share that concern more. I definitely share the exact same concerns that you have. And you know, I will say that the chargers that the city has been purchasing are good chargers. You know, they're paying for the same data. You know, they're going to want to make sure that they can control these, that they have insights and access. So, you know, what they're getting is definitely worth the money that they're paying. We're just trying to cut out, you know, anything additional that's not necessary, if that makes sense.
Sure, as a utility company, you know, they'd love to have that data coming from each of the charged cars. So no, I understand. Thank you.
That question's all.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For office.
Any,
No, it's a caution to be careful, geez.
any more questions?
No.
Thank you, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And I believe that Alyssa has my contact information. So if you want to reach out to me directly, happy to answer any other questions offline. And I will share that meeting invite as soon as I have it regarding the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next on the agenda, we have the EOC weatherization case study that Jennifer Grimmett, who's the executive director there, CEO and executive director of the Energy Outreach Colorado. So Jennifer, please go ahead. Do you want to present or?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yes, I thank all of you for having me.
Send it to you.
She's waiting for us.
Yeah, we can hear you really loudly.
Go ahead, Jennifer. We'll quiet them down in here.
Okay, I don't know why I'm getting that message.
We saw your screen for a little while, Jennifer, and then it just went away. And now you're muted.
I'm having a Zoom issue. Hold on one second. Let me try it again.
Okay.
How does that work?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me. And again, I just want to thank you all for your service on this committee. This is so important to have, you know, people thinking about energy, working on these energy issues. So again, we just really appreciate it. This conversation came out of a presentation that I did at the Colorado Municipal League, I believe. So I'm going to go through, I have quite a bit of slides. I sent these to Alyssa. I'm going to go through them quickly. But I think the purpose was to focus on a specific weatherization case study that we did, which is in our Healthy Homes program, just to give you some perspective. But just to remind you all of what Energy Outreach Colorado is we're a statewide nonprofit whose mission is to ensure that all Coloradans can afford home energy. And we run a number of different programs around energy assistance, energy efficiency, solar garden programs. We do a lot of advocacy work at the Public Utility Commission, the legislature, Air Quality Control Commission, et cetera. So our vision is to sort of have this holistic approach where we see people come in with a need for energy assistance and then connect them into energy efficiency programs. So we've been around for 34 years. I've been there for 23 of those years. And we were really created to sort of fill the gaps in the public funded programs, the LEAP program that's through the Department of Human Services, and the weatherization program that's through the Colorado Energy Office. So we sort of try to serve those customers that either can't or don't meet the qualifications, or if there's areas of need that aren't being served that we can fill it in. So I just wanted to talk about energy assistance trends really quickly. As you know, we're seeing dramatic increases in need and the combination of issues around this. Some of it's just growing income inequality, more volatility in natural gas prices, which cause heating increases. But fundamentally, between LEAP and EOC, we're serving significantly more households than we have in the past. And when we look at this chart really shows our average benefit per household and how much that's increased. So I think this is just, again, it's been 100% increase in 6 years. This is signaling to us that energy, affordability is being challenged. We've been working really hard to, increase revenue, both publicly funded and ratepayer funded programs. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. But I did want to just give some overview. When we look at Black Hills territory, and I appreciated Eric's presentation, I tried to break this down to city and county, but I was really only able to do county at this point. But if you're curious on that difference, we can certainly do that. But Pueblo County receives 77% of our Black Hills Energy electric assistance, which has been really, really important. And if you can recall, LEAP operates November through April, and that's for heating. So the vast majority of that funding is going to Xcel Energy on the gas side. So what we've been trying to do is to support Pueblo customers and Black Hills Energy customers on the electric side. So I just included some of that energy assistance. But when you look at LEAP overall, that's where a lot of the energy assistance is coming into the county again, but it's heading to Xcel Energy. When I look at the efforts that we did in Pueblo County, we run the Crisis Intervention Program, which is also funded by the Department of Human Services, and this is a furnace repair and replacement program. So we were able to do quite a few furnace repairs and replacements and even install some water heaters, which was great. We also manage a Colorado Affordable Residential Energy Program, which is very similar to the weatherization program that serves through Pueblo County. And this last year, we started working with some private contractors and we were able to do 8 homes with an investment of $93,000. Next year, we'll be doing 75 through this program, and that's funded through Xcel Gas. We don't administer Black Hills electric demand side management programs any longer, but we're still trying to bring in other private dollars to help support the electric needs for those customers. But we're just sort of trying to expand all of the services that we provide, especially into Pueblo. So
I had a question. I'm sorry, a couple foils back where you showed the amount of help that you're providing. Is all this help paid by on bill? Do we pay it in our bills? In other words, or
some of this money, yes, is. So right now, all customers are paying 75 cents a month on their gas bill and 75 cents a month on their electric bill to support. We receive 50% of that for energy assistance, and the Colorado Energy Office receives the other half for energy efficiency.
Okay.
Just to give you a sense of the scale of the efficiency programs that we provide. So we are the statewide contractor for the Energy Office for multifamily affordable housing. We also have a nonprofit energy efficiency program where we serve, think of food banks or like the administrative offices of Catholic Charities is one of our projects. We have energy education programs. I'm going to talk a little bit more about our solar garden programs, but we're also, you know, doing some work as Eric was talking about your transportation programs. We administer Xcel's multifamily transportation program, trying to install electric vehicle charging infrastructure into affordable housing and trying to connect and do income qualification for rebate programs. So what we're recognizing across the state is as we're looking at reducing carbon and integrating lots of different programs into our sort of energy future, we want to make sure that income qualified households that are paying for these programs through their rates or are getting the benefits of all other customers. And so because we've been administering these programs for so long, you know, we really are proud of the growth that we've had and the integration of all of these and are continuing to learn and really need groups like yours to inform, you know, the work that we're all doing. Just in terms of total impact, this is just sort of to give the sense of scale in terms of what we've been doing and what we've been leveraging statewide. So with our NEAT project, we completed over 54 projects across the state, multifamily 4,100 units, which is extraordinary. And we're continuing to see how all of the new investment in this space, you know, we're able to work with additional contractors. Specifically around electrification, I know you know a lot about that, and this was just, again, part of the presentation I had, but when we think about the benefits, you know, we know that it can reduce energy burden, we know it improves access to affordability. We are really excited when we can add cooling to a home if we're able to install a heat pump, and we can avoid volatile prices, and it actually reduces liability for us as we are not installing combustion equipment. But I will say, when we're looking at retrofitting homes of income qualified households, many of whom are renters, you know, we still really see the value of natural gas in a dual fuel system in many cases, just because of the age of the structure and the cost of how this is working. So we're doing a lot of pilots across the state to implement this work. And I just have the same kind of comments on the commercial side, because we are doing this again in multifamily buildings and with nonprofits, you know, so larger, you know, buildings over 10,000 square feet. So we definitely see a lot of benefits. But when we look at some of the challenges of this, we also recognize that this can increase the cost of energy for families. And so that's why we see the importance of pairing an electrification of a home with a subscription to a community solar garden, which can reduce that long-term energy impact. We're still balancing the substantial upfront costs that we have with doing this work. We're struggling with the contractor network. We're struggling with some of the manufacturing, you know, availability, and just also the consumer behavior around when you install a heat pump, it's kind of a set it and forget it. And we come from a culture of where we've been telling people to turn your thermostat up and down. And so what we see sometimes is people have, you know, they fiddle with the heat pump because they're a little uncomfortable in the shoulder periods. And we see a lot of callbacks, which challenges our contractor network. So there's a lot of learning that needs to happen as we're doing some of this installation. And similarly to the, you know, commercial implementation. We're struggling with multifamily building owners until it's mandated, which, you know, we're starting to see that with some of the building performance standard requirements and having to adapt, you know, new technology and new strategies to reduce energy usage in larger buildings. It's just the capital costs are high, you know, the margins that some of these products and buildings have are low. I'm also the chair of the board of the Colorado Clean Energy Fund, which is Colorado's green bank, which is really exciting in that they're bringing a lot of new capital to help finance some of these projects and, you know, helps to layer the capital stack to make them work. But these are just some of the challenges we're seeing. And I just wanted to provide some impact. So the demand side management territory is what EOC administers for income qualified households statewide. If you look at the electrification, that's what we're able to do because we're only working on this right now with Xcel Energy. So it just shows kind of the dynamic of it. It took us 15 years to build up our infrastructure on the demand side management side, you know, again, specifically serving income qualified households. And so we're working at the same thing. We have a new partnership with Platte River Power Authority, which is the city of Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont, and Estes Park. We have some partnerships with Gunnison. So we're doing some outreach and trying to work, you know, to really bring these programs and products statewide. The Healthy Homes program is the program I was specifically asked to talk about. And this is really taking our efficiency work to the next level. So we're getting referrals from healthcare providers, primarily children right now that have high respiratory needs, where when they get released from the hospital and their health issues are exacerbated because of their health. It may have really old carpet, it may not have airflow. One of the proof of concepts of this is, could we get Medicaid to do a prescription for home modification to help really drive informing energy and health and housing, you know, all together, raise different funding sources together to really improve the health and safety of the PMAs. So we do a lot of assessment work. We're monitoring air quality before and after. We're working with the health partners to monitor health experiences, because we know inherently there's a lot of non-energy benefits that come from the work that we do. And now we're really trying to prove it so that we can bring in more funding to this space. So this example of a home was in Montbello, which is North Denver, just kind of west of the airport. I think it's just about 2,500 square feet. And when we looked at, the premise of this is it's all electric in a retrofit space. So this is, you know, taking the gas furnace, putting in the new water or heat pump, which then added cooling to this home, which was tremendous. We were able to take out really old carpet and put in wood flooring, because again, there were pets and smoke and just dust that exacerbated the health issues. And so this is a list of all the things that we did in the home. The first 5 are really traditional weatherization. So air sealing, weather stripping, low, you know, featured, you know, low flow fixtures, you know, adding in a programmable thermostat. The items in orange are all of the electrification measures that we did. So this was installing new equipment, rewiring. I think there was some knob and tube wiring in here, putting in a new panel, but then adding, you know, again, a cold climate heat pump, a water heater, dryer, etc. And then the other measures are all related to the health. So that's adding the HEPA filters and exhaust fans, replacing carpet. And when we look at the costs of this particular home is $72,000. Now, this was the first one we did. We had a lot of lessons. Xcel's utility rebates covered a portion of it. We had funding from the Colorado Housing Finance Authority. And then the bulk of this money is coming from the city and county of Denver. So they had passed a 0.25% sales tax to fund programs within the city. And they wanted to really, again, try to do this proof of concept of how can we fully electrify up. We also got $1 million grant from Google to support this work, because again, I think people across the country are seeing this sort of, you know, how do we bring all these things together? I just really want to also talk quickly about the community solar program, because again, we think this couples so well with electrification. So right now we have 2,200 subscribers. So EOC is the subscriber organization. And so we identify those households, we work on the paperwork side, and then we deliver those bill savings. And when we look at what's happening with both Black Hills and Xcel Energy, we will have, you know, closer to 12,000 or just over 12,000 subscribers by the end of next year. So this program has dramatically increased. And this is because of the advocacy work happening through the renewable programs. And so that's, you know, my presentation. I did just want to point out that I did get today that we have 38 households in Pueblo subscribed, and they're saving about $169 a month on their bill with that on the electric side. We also had worked closely with Pivot Energy, who was able to give a private contribution and apply to a bunch of different programs, and prevented 51 disconnections, you know, in the last couple of months. So those are some exciting things where we can bring in private funding to leverage with our utility partnerships to do some great work.
Well, Jennifer, great.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So,
Great. Yeah.
go ahead, Laura.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. I guess one of my questions is the Healthy Homes program available in Pueblo right now, or would it require allocation of DSM dollars from our utilities?
Well, it's not right now. It's really just like I said, a proof of concept that we're doing in the city of county of Denver, and it's city money. So it's not utility money. Where we can leverage our Excel combined gas and electric rebates, we will. I think this is what we're trying to decide. You know, one of the decision points we're having to make is we probably can't do carpet replacement in every home. It's just too expensive. We also had been doing mold, you know, mitigation. So we, in that particular example, we did some drywall replacement. And, you know, this is, and I think the other thing is we come from like an HGTV mentality where everyone thinks these are just magically done, you know, within, you know, and these are many, many visits to a home, multiple contractors. So there's a lot of disruption. I think the other thing we really need to understand is people need to be ready for these kinds of retrofits. You know, there's a lot of shame in someone's home. Sometimes when they're low income, they may have a hoarding issue. They just may be embarrassed. And there's a lot of convincing that we have to do on why this is important and how this can not only improve the health of the residents of the home, reduce their energy costs, and get them talking about how, you know, this is important for them. And when we talk about scaling this, I think we want to get it right first in a community like Denver, where we just have a lot, and they just have a lot of money because they passed that sales tax increase. I'll be perfectly honest. And then we are getting national attention on it because we're able, you know, it's extraordinary the work we're doing, but it's also really, really expensive, as you can see. So I think we want to get it right before we take it to other communities.
Thank you. Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment. You know, this work is great. Thank you. It just needs, you know, it needs to be scaled way up is the problem. I think, you know, the Pueblo County, of course, they're working on multiple counties, you know, in their weatherization program. And I think they do it at about a clip of about 200 homes a year. And in this community, in this, you know, southeast Colorado, I think there's about 40,000 homes that need improvement, right? So it's at that rate, it's going to take 200 years, and we need to do that in 20, right? So it needs to be scaled. So if you guys, if you know the energy outreach office has some ideas on how to help us scale this, we could sure use the help. Okay.
Yeah, and that's really the intent of our Colorado Affordable Residential Energy Program. And the reality is we have a contractor that's willing to serve in Pueblo, and that's why we're able to do 75 homes next year. And that just takes a lot of education and relationship building and the confidence that, you know, that funding is going to be there, because they have to do the energy auditing. You know, every home requires kind of a different package, and we have to limit what we're able to do. And so I think, you know, that's what we believe the Inflation Reduction Act will have some benefit of bringing in a lot of new public money to layer again with city and utility money to do more homes. And then I think there's going to be some programs that we'll see with on-bill financing is going to probably start rolling out, where people can, you know, invest themselves and take a longer time. I think it's really hard when you're in a crisis to think about investing on this, even though you may know that the long-term benefit is there. So I think all of these things need to be working simultaneously. And that's, you know, we're so fortunate to have a good relationship with Pueblo County and always have, and, you know, really try to communicate as much as we can. But the need is high and the demand is high. And that's why these conversations are so important.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your help. Thank you.
Ask her about that, Matt.
Oh, you know, one of the issues I brought up early in the meeting was this community, energy community, yes, a lot of Pueblo County is not included in that. And I guess, you know, do you have any suggestions on how to get that changed?
I'll certainly look into it. I hadn't seen that particular, I mean, I will say there is a lot of information coming from a lot of different places. I think what we do know is that based on income alone, you know, Pueblo, I would say, you know, is going to get more attention than other counties. I mean, that's just always been our belief. But I don't know. I'll look into that specific reason. We do have some work. One of my staff members is leaving EOC actually to go work for the Department of Energy. So we have a new insider on some of this. And these are the little details that when we bring them and we can expand that definition certainly is valuable. And we can certainly work with the national delegation as well to support any of your efforts.
So Jennifer, we had seen at one time a map that's prepared by the Fed. So I'm assuming it's the Federal Energy Commission that shows each county throughout each state, throughout the United States that has a designated area. And I don't know if it's for where they get like a tax credit or a rebate or some kind of a discount if in that certain area of the county that I don't know if they do renewable energy or whatever, and that's what we're referring to.
Yeah, and I'll just look into it more. I'm not familiar with it, but I can get back with Laura too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Steve, just so you know, that is a tax credit that can increase the benefit you get from projects like renewable energy or batteries by an extra 10% if you do that project in the census tract that's designated energy community. And so, you know,
Laura,
you can see that map. I put a link in the chat, but I can send it out via email so you can zoom in and out and view how the city is excluded from that. But it's basically, you know, the tract where Comanche sits and then adjacent tracts qualify, but not the city. And I know the Just Transition Advisory Committee at the state level is working on lobbying for that change to expand it. So they're aware of it at the state level and are trying to lobby.
you're the one that showed us the map.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Mhm.
Sorry, Jennifer.
No, that's okay. And just to answer the question.
Maybe Laura, you can provide it to Jennifer.
Jennifer knows.
Well, it's all I do is talk about this stuff. So, with regard, so we're in the process right now of reviewing county application or, you know, agency applications. So I can certainly let you know once that process is completed, if there's new agency partners. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for all you do again. And thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda is the work session presentation we're going to give to the city council in a couple of weeks. So, Laura, do you want to run that out? I was going to make a comment at this meeting, and I got my notes here. I want to. So here's what I was going to kind of say at the beginning of this work session. We have started our third year of service with the city of Pueblo. I want to thank the previous chair, Steve Naraki, and previous vice chair, Edgy Walrick, for their work. The commission proposed energy efficient buildings like the net zero fire stations planned to be built soon. We had multiple meetings to work with the county, building department, and other Colorado cities and national labs to drive our policies. A primary focus was planning on energy efficiency in Pueblo buildings and prepare them for electrification. The power source being renewable energy. We have some concerns with Excel's Pueblo Innovative Energy Advisory Committee. Both the Energy Commission and the Board of Water Work asked to participate and were denied. The committee's proposing technologies like nuclear and hydrogen injection into methane that will raise the cost of electric power and distract from cheaper and better renewables. Mainly this it provides Excel with massive investment potential and extends the life of polluting systems. Such things hurt our already disproportionately disadvantaged community and has many land, Pueblo County has many landowners ready to build solar farms on their property. So there's not a lack of land to do that. And then we're going to go into the presentation.
Sounds good.
Yep.
I think that's reflective of this group.
I might want to clarify, so I just wanted to go back and check. Florida Waterworks was not denied access to the committee. In fact, they asked our executive director and the time schedule didn't work with him. And he didn't think at the time to reach out to me to see if I could go to him. So by the time he went back to him and said, hey, I can't make it, but Alan can.
Too late.
The response was like, well, the committee's already been set and we've already had several meetings.
Thanks for correcting. That would have been.
So let's not say that the Board of Waterworks.
Okay,
we had a chance, we missed it.
Okay, so Laura, go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, my dog just started barking. I know we are very close to time, so we'll try and just blast through this to get feedback at this point. And then certainly email in thoughts if you think of things after the fact as well. But here is our general update we hope to provide to the City Council at their work session on the 18th. So we just start with an overview of the Commission's mission, which is straight off of the website here. And just kind of reminding them that the City of Pueblo passed a resolution in 2019 committing to 100% renewable energy by 2035. But associated with that are other goals of lowering energy bills, growing the local economy, etc. So looking for all of the tangential benefits that would come with achieving that goal.
Excuse me a second. That date.
Yes.
It was 2017.
Yeah, because.
Was it 2017?
I was on city council as president, and Larry Atencio was the one that it was in line with the Paris Accord, and I think it was 2017.
If this is on some Pueblo website, we probably need to get it corrected.
Yeah. Or Larry will correct it.
Yeah. I even linked to the resolution. So 27, thank you. That's an important number to correct. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, the future of Pueblo's grid. So Black Hills Energy, basically our 100% is very dependent upon what happens with Black Hills Energy and how they choose to power, choose to generate energy for us. So they filed their Colorado Clean Energy Plan at the Public Utilities Commission. You know, as a commission, we heard their presentation about this, and it will get us to 70% by 2030. You know, that's going to involve 400 megawatts of renewable energy, including wind, solar, battery, some bill impacts that are still a little bit unclear from that. But overall, you know, that's where we're headed based on their Colorado Clean Energy Plan. So what does that mean for the city? It means to beneficially electrify as many city assets as possible, including the transportation sector, try and pursue renewable energy projects of added benefit to the city. So anything we can carve out from this plan, you know, for the city to potentially take ownership of, or directly benefit from would be excellent. And then, you know, work with Black Hills to see what we can do to close that 30% gap between 2030 and 2035 by participating in their next energy resource plan that they'll have to file. I'm not sure when that will be due, but we'll want to be involved in that process at a deep level. And so I said beneficially electrify. What is beneficial electrification? This is a term, if you work in the energy sector, that's thrown around all of the time. It's very common. But basically, if it's beneficial electrification, it meets 4 criteria, and that's saving consumers money over time, benefiting the environment and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, improving basically your quality of life, and then fostering a robust and more resilient grid. And so it needs to be beneficial. It needs to satisfy at least one of those without adversely affecting the others. So just to kind of set the scene on what we mean by beneficial electrification. So what could that look like in our community? That could be 100% electrification of new construction at the residential level, and really striving for that at the commercial level. That could be retrofitting, so changing out appliances like we've talked about, water heating, stoves, HVAC systems, but also acknowledging that there's a role for dual fuel here, hybrid approaches, where you've got gas as a backup source, and maybe it's only used 10% of the time. But 90% of the time you're taking advantage of a high efficient electric system. And then conversion of transportation to fossil fuel free options. Renewable energy projects. This could also mean pursuing renewable energy carve-outs. Again, Black Hills is looking at 400 megawatts of new renewable energy sources that they're trying to bring online. How can we partner with them and other contractors to develop projects that bring the city and its residents additional benefits? So again, there's going to be a broad utility benefit in terms of bringing renewable energy on the full grid, but how can we carve out targeted benefits? For example, perhaps our housing authority, doing some targeted energy bill cost reductions like you would often do with community solar. How do we take advantage of this to do some strategic workforce development? And how do we look at options for localized resilience? So again, we can have huge arrays sitting off in portions of the county, and that's the most efficient way to build solar. But how can, again, the city carve out some of that, maybe pair it with battery or other backup resources so that there's additional resilience right here for some of our most critical facilities, be it schools, emergency service centers, etc. So some example strategies of how the city could implement, could take strategic action in getting there. The number one thing is thoroughly assessing city facilities for energy savings and renewable energy opportunities with a very skilled team of engineers and ASHRAE certified auditors. So basically doing a highly qualified review of the city's facilities to determine opportunities for savings. Again, this commission is really familiar with energy performance contracting. We've been talking about it. And this is just a big push for the city to act on getting an energy performance contract in place, or at least going through the auditing process. Because I'm not being hyperbolic when I say every month the city doesn't take action, they could easily be losing $20,000 in lost energy savings, for example. And again, with an energy performance contract, we can have them look at renewable energy options. So we're not just talking about efficiency, we're talking about efficiency plus renewable energy. And they would implement all of it for the city, understanding the city has limited capacity. So this is a way for the city to truly lead by example. Again, another example for greening the grid could be imposing a requirement that all city managed RFPs for new construction, retrofits, leases, or new vehicle purchases include at least one zero emission alternative for the city to review, and make sure that it's evaluated over the life cycle of that building. Because again, upfront, having a net zero building can cost more, but long-term, the city is going to be saving. So making sure that those options are always evaluated. So embedding it in the purchasing process, unclear if we need this to be a resolution, if this can just be enacted without going through city council, for example, but it's something to consider. Another proposal could be finding strategic ways to incentivize all new construction retrofits. You could provide rebates or a streamlined permitting process through regional building, waiving permit fees. There are a lot of great examples out there about how this could be done, and we could make it cost neutral for the city by applying for a grant through federal funds, through the state, to put a program like this in place, or at least pilot it and see if it's changing construction behavior. So a couple different options here that would not financially burden the city. And again, Denver, I've got a few examples here. And then Florida actually has a green building program as well. So this is not novel. There are lots of examples out there we could learn from. Another example is supporting commercial energy efficiency and electrification while building a workforce by bringing in a highly qualified business, kind of like the energy performance contracting model, to do a giant blitz of our community. Again, like an energy performance contract model, we could pre-enroll lots of businesses, especially our small businesses. They really fall through the cracks in terms of having someone be able to do a qualified audit for them at an affordable rate. And so if we were to do this in a very coordinated way, we could reach a lot more of our commercial sector and really support them in transitioning, taking advantage of significant tax credits that are out there for businesses, and reduce the carbon footprint in a way that is often going to save them money from day one, depending on how they go about financing it. And then I think this is the final one: spearhead community communication about federal and state funding opportunities to drive energy efficiency and adoption. Again, we've got the new Cash for Clunkers program. Folks can now get $6,000 for trading in a car for an EV, and plus another $5,000 with the EV tax credit. I mean, you can just stack and stack and stack so many of these credits that are now available between the state and the federal government, but it's hard to stay on top of. And so we need some strategic communication to all sectors of the community about this. And that's a full-time job, just about. And that's where additional staff can play a huge role. We're going to ask George to do everything for us here. But yeah, I could see, again, this could be a full-time job in its own that could really pay off. Okay, no, this is the final one. And then pursue all relevant funding opportunities. There is so much out there. Again, in the next couple of years, the city could easily pull in a good $15 million. I don't think it's unreasonable at all if we had the capacity to apply for it. And that's where, if we needed to staff up to do it, it would pay for itself many times over. Again, American-made challenges. This is one example. There are 74 active challenges, and these are like community level prizes the Department of Energy has put out there. And we could easily be winning a bunch of these. But again, we don't have the capacity to be putting together our community stakeholders into a challenge group to apply for it. It does involve time and work. But again, I do believe it would really pay off for the community. And then I think the commission has seen this many times over. We're a disproportionately impacted community. We just want council to understand, that we rank #1 in Colorado in terms of their ranking system for disproportionately impacted communities. By the federal standard, we're a disadvantaged community. So through a lot of these different metrics, we're in the priority list for funding. So it's just reinforcing the fact that if we go after funding, we're the kind of community that everyone wants to give funding to right now. And then finally, celebrate our successes. So welcoming George. This is a huge win for the commission. We've got an energy coordinator, and he's fantastic. And we're really, really excited to have someone dedicated to this work. So that's a huge win for the city and this commission. The city of Pueblo was awarded a National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Fund to install a DC fast charging plaza, which is another big win on the transportation side of things, as well as the EV planning grant, EV readiness grant that will now need to be implemented in the community. So again, we're having and seeing lots of successes, and we only expect more. And so, lots of work to do, but we need to stop and acknowledge what's being done right now as well. And then just a note on nuclear. Nuclear is not considered a renewable energy resource, so that, by our standards would not meet the city's goal. It's problematic for the environment and human health, cost prohibitive, a timeline prohibitive, as we've learned. And as Ken mentioned, the city does not have representation on this PISAC group being spearheaded by Xcel Energy, which is strongly considering nuclear solutions. And our recommendation is that the city needs to be central to any conversations regarding a just energy transition. And bringing in something like nuclear would be part of that just energy transition conversation. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully we're not too far over time. Thank you all for bearing with me.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic. Thank you.
One thing, are we gonna ask the council to do something? Just maybe something to consider. It's a great presentation. It tells them all about it, but I could see if I was a city council person, I'd say, well, how can we help? Maybe we can have a list of things as far as advocacy. You do mention within your presentation, maybe we need to staff up more for the energy department, I'll call it, George. And, but I saw the last time in our presentation, we gave it to them and they kind of looked around like, well, what do we, how can we help? What can we do? And so maybe you could leave them with some sort of list of objectives that they can think about. But I don't know what everyone else thinks about that.
I don't think they've changed. I will say that it was excellent and everything you do that helps this committee is really terrific, but it did take longer than 10 minutes. And that's what we have with 5 minutes for questions. So you might, Ken, you might want to contact the work chair, Sarah Martinez, and ask if we could, since this is a city commission,
right,
that we could have more than that. And maybe George, you could also reach out, because I think it would be tragic if you couldn't present the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then have a few minutes to be able to do what you're saying, is ask and then see what they say. And but instead of, they're pretty strict about keeping to the time frame, but I think this, we're not, again, not belittling any community group that would come to the work session, but this is a commission that's been designed to advise them and the mayor. I think, and we have only been there once. It's been going on the third year, so I think that would be not out of the question to see what could be done, since it's still a couple of weeks off.
Yeah. Okay. We presented 2 times.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Where was I?
You were there.
Hey, yeah, okay, sorry. Don't listen to me alone.
The first time I gave the presentation and you know,
that's when they gave us a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot. We all wanted to forget that.
Yeah, I know, maybe I did forget that one. Like, who are you guys? What do you want? And you know, Laura, don't panic, because what we presented, you put together. And if we didn't have that, we would have had much of anything.
And that's why I brought that up, because that was, you know, they'll sit there and go, well, you know, so if you have some sort of suggestion what they can do to
We
help.
don't have to mention names.
Maybe a list of things, advocacy, talk about, you know, the role and how much this means to us. And, you know, maybe they could help by voting towards the things that are going to help accomplish this.
And then since Larry Atencio is on our committee, he might be the person to see about having the work session be able to allow us a little bit of extra time. He probably have more clout than any of us, since he just sits on council.
Okay. I'll work on that.
Okay, great.
And, you know, I want to point out the presentation actually does have suggested action by the city. But it's
summarized.
Yeah, it may be helpful, because I could see them asking that question, even though and so, you know, we should be prepared to go back. Well, let's go back to this slide. You know, this energy performance contract might be the number one thing you should get rolling as soon as possible.
Right.
So I think we can go back to some previous slides and say, okay, you know, and hit them again in case.
Yeah, like an executive summary, you know.
I think you're real good on this energy performance contract, because that's a big deal.
Good point.
And
it's a pretty extensive presentation, so they could easily forget that. So I think that's a good suggestion, Laura. Maybe you summarize what it is that we're wanting them to help support.
Sure. Yeah. And if it's, again, if we can't get more time, we could just consolidate all those action, proposed ideas slides into one summary slide. We can run through it.
It was longer than 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think she started.
Your comments. Not that yours were long, but I'm just saying it, and I thought you were going at a
Yeah, she ran that-
natural, normal speed, that you weren't trying to fast do it, so.
So people that understand,
Right.
they may have trouble comprehending.
And who knows what else is on the agenda too, so that's the other thing we might want to see. I just want us to get the most attention we can from them, and they have a lot of stuff being thrown at them all the time.
One comment I have on the nuclear power question and Comanche, and I sent this to you earlier, Laura. Maybe emphasize the fact, because I think a lot of people forget about this, but Comanche is actually located in the city limits now. They were annexed when they added the third unit. So we're talking about the city.
It's a real stakeholder issue.
Yeah, I mean, the city is not sitting on a committee that's trying to decide what to do with the power plant inside city limits.
Yeah, well,
And they have a.
that's why I said that group has no authority. I don't even know, like I said, it's Excel and I work for Excel. It's their way of promoting some of the things that they want to accomplish. And that's what their goal is to benefit Excel. It doesn't seem to have any benefit towards the county or the city, because no one's within that group has any authority or
One of the questions is likely to be the issue of jobs and taxes, because it may not be nuclear so much as it's just a big project that creates jobs. And would create it's create a lot of jobs. And the people in Denver are gonna pay for it, and I don't know that they're gonna like it.
But you're great at, but with this commission, how can that commission do anything to help that?
For us, it's really important that the resolution is what's important. Certainly.
But whatever they're deciding, they can't, who they gonna come to and say, here's what we decided, and that group's gonna say, okay, let's go with it.
Well, they
don't have no authority over it.
Well, the way you use these sort of committees is you have something you want to do, you set up a committee that's then going to rubber stamp that. So then when you go to the PUC, you can say, well, we involved the local community through this committee and they came to the conclusion that this was the way to go. And it's just a way to pretend like you really had public involvement.
The PUC won't pay any attention.
So there's a whole effort going on now with a company called Tetra that Excel hired to promote their plan. Okay.
So they're doing interviews, right?
Yeah, and they're going around and asking people to interview, right?
Yeah.
And these people may not be aware of it. They might say, this is great, and it's really
Right.
not.
I just don't want to give them any credit, for doing anything for the city or the county, or for anybody. I mean, it's an independent group. It'd be like a contract. Tom knows, he's been with contract groups, sets them up and decides that they want to do a proposal to the city or the county. And, even the PUC, they could go to the PUC and make some suggestions for one of the utility companies and things like that.
Well,
But that's what that is.
What they're gonna say is that Pueblo wants this stuff, right? We propose this stuff and Pueblo wants it. And here, what we're coming out is a statement that, let's be careful. Some of the stuff that they're talking about really is not gonna benefit Pueblo.
I think they're gonna go to the state, they're gonna go to the state representatives and try to get the deregulation of electric. Well, we almost have that now with these community gardens.
Remember, the county commissioners negotiated the taxes.
Right.
After they decommissioned for another 10 years after that.
The commission.
Yeah, and so I think that's the driving power, is they're telling a community that has significant population living in poverty that you don't want to lose out on these additional taxes. Are they going to take that plant and do it somewhere else?
Oh, it could be a win, don't get me wrong, it may be a win-win situation.
But I'm talking about the nuclear part, that's.
Yeah, I think it's going to. Moffat County is probably the most likely candidate in Colorado, because they're in a different situation, even though it's an environmental justice issue. Because the power plants that are there are, the major jobs and taxes, right? Basically all they have. And we have options. And I think when you look at the low cost of energy charts, you see nuclear at the top. It's the most expensive. On the other hand, if you come to the bottom, and it's solar, but if you go to the middle, you'll see storage. If you combine, solar and storage, it's not going to be a cheap project in the first place. And I think there'll be workforce development that's possible through this whole idea. And I think if we can do anything else in the future is to prove that this has gone. That'll be the kind of things that Laura is talking about, and that is, getting on board with some of these things and deciding what it is we can do. With George, or if George is full-time, I think that's an important thing. We're just kind of strapped right now in terms of really trying to pull anything off, so we need their help to get us to the next step.
But it's past time that fossil fuels, we gotta quit saying, well, it's okay to have fossil fuels because we got jobs. It's okay to have fossil fuel because we got taxes. I mean, we can't, that's a stupid, we're gonna have our public health thing be hurt because we're gonna have more jobs. We stopped doing that already as a society. Right, well, so the next political change, so.
Well, it's not a real issue probably we need to make sure we're just doing what we have and what's working. The ERP for the nuclear thing would be 2035. And I've been in touch with a couple of former PUC commissioners, and they're suggesting that we ask Xcel if that's what their plan is. Do you plan on actually looking at nuclear in 2035?
Well, the best way to, as you know, Xcel would never give you that information. You go to
they have to give us.
You go to the PUC and ask for information that's public information. It's just like we talked before about Black Hills. You don't go to Black Hills and ask for rate increases.
I think Tom was saying that the PUC would ask that.
I thought he said we'd go to Xcel and ask it, but that's right.
That's the advice of former PUC folks. They say, they really.
No, I understand, Tom, but you see what I'm saying. I used to work for Xcel. The confidential information like that, their stockholders would never allow that.
Just knowing what their intention is. Is that your intention?
Well, all I'm suggesting is they're not going to tell you. Hey, one energy savings. I suggest we don't get any more of this paper. We should all have.
Getting it electronically.
We all should have phones, you can bring it up. I mean, I almost want to take this home, but she'll recycle it. My recycle will go in, this paper recycles differently than my newspapers. So, but don't you think?
I think that's a good comment.
And even this here, we should have it. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's easier to look at this than open my phone up.
Well, I would say let's have the agenda and maybe the minutes so that we could,
Okay.
so that we're sitting here.
So we got something to put notes on.
Or an iPad, you can look at it on whatever, but yeah.
And it'll save a lot of work too.
Yeah. Right, we've got George here.
Well, George can do it. Yeah. Nice meeting you.
Okay, so I guess
good luck with that. And I think
Let me give you my contact card, just.
Yeah.
So you have it.
if there's no other questions, we'll end the meeting.
Thanks, Laura.
Talking about this, I work for Excel and.
That was a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
Good. But awesome.
That's it.